Good evening once more, everyone. My name is Mazi Ezok, and you're welcome to Ginger Media TV. This evening, as I promised us earlier today, I am having a conversation with a lawyer, an entrepreneur, an author, a public speaker, former Speaker, Imo State House of Assembly, and also the former Imo Trade Rep in the United States. I talk of no other person than Right Honorable Ike C. Ibe. Good evening, my brother. You're welcome to the Media TV.
Thank you very much. Welcome, viewers.
So let us quickly go straight to the point. Now, you recently, I recall, sometime end of May, I did have a conversation with you when you took the PDP to Federal High Court, challenging the PDP for jettisoning zoning arrangement. Today, you made it public that a decision has been reached on that case. Hence, my bringing you back here to have that conversation. Now, you were hoping to have court define that section of the PDP constitution to say that power should rotate between the south and north, or between the north and south of this nation. Now, what is the case as it is today, and what is the decision of that court?
Yes, thank you very much. We are back in court today after a series of dates. The court actually entered a judgment today. And in her considered opinion, the Honorable Justice Olajuwon ruled that the action lacked merit, even though she agreed with most of the facts that we deposed and put in evidence, especially the fact that PDP practices zoning. It is provided for in the PDP's constitution that every executive level of the party must strictly adhere to the principles of zoning in fairness to, in furtherance to justice, equity, and fair play. But she went ahead to rule that even though this were provided for in the party's constitution and it's been practiced by the party over the years, that it was an internal affair of the party and therefore lacks merit. And so she threw away our lawsuit today, saying the party was free to do what they did, which we contended was against its own constitution. So the case was thrown out, in the words of the judge, for lacking merit, that the court cannot go into internal affairs of the party. So that is the judgment of the court today, which of course we are very dissatisfied with.
So, are there grounds for appeal? I mean, does that mean that once this decision is taken, that's it, nothing again, can happen?
Of course, there are grounds for appeal. I'm going to huddle again with my lawyers once we get the certified true copy of the judgments, which will be part of the documentations we'll have to go to appeal with if we decide to go on appeal. Especially because of the fact that we also cited a recent, not too distant case that the Supreme Court decided, which has to do with the constitution and regulations of parties, which was, like I cited in our last appearance, the case of Senator Andrew Ba and George Mogalo, where the Supreme Court ruled that the party did not abide by its constitution in the conduct of its primary for the governorship race of candidacy of APC in Anambra State. So part of the major reasons why we went to court in this instant matter is that PDP did not abide by its constitution, which it expressly states that the party adopts zoning and rotation in its elections and party positions. And so that is a germane constitutional provision which has been decided on once or more than once by the Supreme Court. And we see no reason why the court, in its wisdom, will not make reference to that Supreme Court classical precedents. Every court lower than the Supreme Court must abide by the Supreme Court precedents. And in this case, we feel that the court did not, even though courts are entitled to their judgments. And that is why there are processes of appeal. So we are certainly looking at a process of possibility of appeal in this case.
Now, but the case you alluded to, that is the case of Moralo versus Andiba in Anambra State. Was
Yes.
that case also part of that filing? Was that alluded in that? Was that argument made at the point of submission?
Of course, we did, and we cited it, and we also vigorously argued it as one of the authorities that we relied on, amongst other authorities of appellate courts. Besides, we also argued instances of zoning which have been practiced by the party in recent times, including zoning of its party positions in the last national convention of the party. We argue that all of a sudden there is no reason why it will get to a turn of a particular area and the party jettisons zoning just because of whatever reasons they found convenient. And we're saying it is not right. It is not proper. You also imagine if some people have argued, and the courts also did say that this is internal affairs of the party. If a party is governed by a constitution, the constitution then must be complied with. You cannot come and say it is internal affairs. Yes, it's internal affairs, but there are provisions of the constitution which the party willingly wrote for itself and have been abiding by all these years. So it is in our judgment wrong for the court to have held otherwise. Sometimes people do argue that these provisions are not justiciable. Now, this is a public interest lawsuit also. I don't subscribe to the fact that constitutional provisions, or that some constitutional provisions are not justiciable. If they are not justiciable, why are they parts of the Constitution? Why are they inserted in the Constitution as provisions and as clauses? Further analogy, if people go into agreements, for instance, transactional agreements to buy land or sell land or exchange goods and all that, they go to court, they seek justice, and the court interprets such agreements and makes provisions to further the interests of justice. So why will it be different in the political party constitution and the court now says it is not justiciable, it is internal affairs? So agreements people go into might as well be classified by the courts as internal, and therefore courts shouldn't look into them. Talk less of a party that seeks and runs for offices for positions that lead the people of the nation, and you say the provisions of their constitutions are internal affairs. Why then do we write a constitution? We might as well leave the parties to decide whatever they have to decide according to their whims and caprices, or according to who gives them more money and all that. There is a constitution, and the constitutions must be abided by. We are even more concerned that a court must decide every matter brought to it, according to the dictates of the laws that are cited. Even if the court thinks personally that their personal view is that this is not something they could decide differently, but we are taught, some of us who are lawyers, we also studied that judges, courts' primary responsibilities is to interpret the Constitution. I remember what we are taught in school, famous quotation by Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, where he said, the prophecies of what the courts do are nothing more pretentious, is what the law is. So the courts must find the moral fabric, the will to give a decision that any provision that is inserted in any constitution should be implemented, not saying it is an internal affairs of the party. And so this is certainly facts that will will call for appeal so that we'll go back to the last courts of the land and get a further review of this judgment. We are certainly looking forward to that.
Okay. At the point of filing this case, were you approached at any time by the People's Democratic Party to withdraw that case before after you have gone to court?
No, we were not approached. And even if we were approached, we certainly would have continued, because this is an interest, I mean, a matter that is of utmost public concern, not just the jurisprudence, but also for the sake of a people. I mean, this case was brought under two flags. We are saying that it is not right for the people of the Southeast to be denied the opportunity of producing a presidential candidate of the party, and hopefully thereafter president of this country. And it is stated in the constitution that there should be zoning and rotation, and it's been practiced all along. So even if the party approached us, I mean, I don't know if they approached anybody, but certainly not me. Even if they did that, we wouldn't have board, because this is something that we need to pursue to the logical conclusion and set a precedent that will, going forward, regulate the impunity that we see in political parties.
So now, obviously, the PDP, as you know, have their presidential candidate and they have their vice presidential candidate now. The PDP is marching on. Obviously, the only party that has actually been able to get their acts together amongst all the big three or the big four, as the case may be. But do you think that if this case goes ahead, that there is possibility of upturning and obstructing whatever they have for 2023?
That is a definite possibility. And I mean, PDP decided to shoot themselves on the feet by not doing the right thing, in our view, or by not following through with their constitution. If the party rules, I mean, if the court rules, if we go on appeal, if the appellate courts rule that what PDP did was against their constitution, then the court will give the appropriate remedies or injunctive remedies. And that could include that PDP did not conduct its primary according to its constitution. And if that is done, there's a likelihood that it will mean that PDP will not field the presidential candidate. And this will teach every party a lesson. I mean, this is an entirely new vista. I mean, the way the society is moving now, especially with the way young men and women are waking up, the way public interest advocates are filing matters up. And these are ways to develop a society. These are ways to deepen a democracy. These are ways to check corruption and fraud in the system. This is the only way a nation can move forward. So if the matter continues to go on appeal and the appellate court rule that the PDP breached its constitution, of course there are penalties, and part of the penalties could be that PDP may not be in the race.
Now, but if you go to appeal and you, by any chance, that's also a possibility, that the appeal court upholds the judgment of the Federal High Court. If that happens, would that be then the end of the road for that case?
Well, the last case, the last court in the land is the Supreme Court. There's always an opportunity to go to the Supreme Court. I mean, if we go to the Court of Appeal, if the court opposes the judgment of the High Court, we have an opportunity to go to the Supreme Court. If also the court decides to shoot down the decision of the Federal High Court, the PDP or any other party has the opportunity to go to the Supreme Court. It is only at the Supreme Court that the final say will be given. And so either party that is, interested can always go to the highest court. And this is a matter, all things being equal, we are certainly will be interested in pursuing the matter up to the highest court.
But isn't that an obscure process? If the Federal High Court, the appeal court is hypothetically speaking is lost, then to go to Supreme Court. What are the possibility of losing on these two courts, then going to the final court of the land and obtaining that judgment?
What is the possibility?
Yeah, what is the possibility of heading to the Supreme Court and that the decision becomes different or becomes positive?
Yes, the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal and then the Supreme Court will look at all the factors. We'll also look at their previous precedents. We'll look at all the circumstances and could make a decision one way or the other. So is a possibility that the Supreme Court, could overturn what the Court of Appeal does if we go to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal has also luckily, one thing is this: these appellate courts usually are a panel of wise men and women, decisions, ideas, thought processes, jurisprudence of more than one person, as opposed to the Federal High Court, where only one person sits on judgment of a case. But in the appellate courts, it's usually a panel. Everybody puts their ideas together, argues every case, every factor of the case, and then decides what they believe is what the law is, or what inputs they have to make into the law. So there's the possibility that the Supreme Court can give a positive hearing to our case if we get there. Same thing with the Court of Appeal.
So definitely, that's an interesting time ahead. So do you have any timeline for getting back to pushing this case forward? Do you have any timeline in mind?
Yes. Usually, according to the court rules and processes, there are certain time frames you have within which to file any appeal. Certainly we are going to, if we are filing an appeal, we are certainly going to take that into consideration so that our appeal will not be time barred. There is usually a timeline. Yes.
Okay. So it would be nice to get more feedback once that is done, so to keep the the public also informed. Now, before I let you go, you did you watch yesterday conversation between Sean Okimbale and Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso? In that interview, he alluded to the fact that if he talked about the merger conversation between NMPP and Labour Party, and in that interview, he also alluded to the fact that if anyone from the Southeast emerges or comes to the presidential ballot, that it is very unlikely that the North would vote for someone from the Southeast based on what he termed insecurity in the Southeast. As someone who is from the Southeast and as a former Speaker of Imo State House of Assembly, what's your take on such comments from him?
Personally, I think this is one of those things we talk about. For His Excellency Engineer Rabiu Musa Kwakwanso to take that stand, it means a continuation of the subjugation or the negative thoughts some people have had about the Southeasterners. I don't see why he will make that kind of a pronouncement, especially as somebody who's been around publicly and politically for many years. And like I said a few minutes ago, what is happening in the society now is that the people have suddenly woken up to understand and to realize that what they want, or the people they want, are people who have the interests of this nation at heart, people who can deliver on democracy dividends, and people who can move our economy forward, people who can objectively and selflessly serve the nation. Now, when you say a Southeasterner cannot win the presidency because of insecurity, insecurity where? Insecurity in the South or insecurity in the North? If you turn this around, if I was to respond directly to Governor Kwakwanso, I would also say that if somebody like him or anybody in the North, for that matter, is seeking the presidency, they may not win the presidency because of the insecurity in the North. because that is where most of the insecurity is, from the Boko Haram incidents to ISIS to the herdsmen and all that. There is hardly any state in the northern part of Nigeria now that you don't have major security challenges. Major security challenges. And so if the nation is to disqualify people based on insecurities in their area, it is from the north, not the south. But that is beyond the point. The point we are making is that Nigerians are tired of bad leaders. Nigerians want leaders who can move the nation forward. Nigerians want leaders who can look at the problems and confront them frontally. Nigerians need leaders who are selfless. Nigerians are tired of leaders who are selfish, who keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. This is that time in Nigeria. This is the finest moment. And it so happens that one of the presidential candidates who is in this race, that is a candidate of the Labour Party, His Excellency Governor Peter Obi, he is the one from all indications whose message is resonating with the masses in all the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria. This, in fact, is the first time a candidate is not just running for the presidency, but the presidency is running for that candidate. You know, and you can see from what is happening, I mean, they've tried to bring all kinds of things, throw all kinds of mud at Mr. Peter Obi, but they can hardly find anything. You can relate that to sometime in 2008 when President Barack Obama ran for presidency in the US. They looked for everything to put him down, but they found nothing. And he used to describe himself as a skinny kid with a funny name who became president because he ran on principles, because the American society then was tired of the same old story. You know, and bringing me back again to what Governor Kwakwanso said, I think with the statement he's made yesterday and continue making, it may look like he has lost or he's losing a wonderful opportunity to be part of a team that can retool this nation or that can rebuild this nation. Making an analogy again with, because when he said that he can't be running mates to Governor Peter Obi, if you look at what again happened in 2008, President Obama, then Senator Obama, was a fresh senator from Illinois, just a few years in the Senate, and he chose a man called Joe Biden, who was a senator for over 35 years, much, much older than him. And Senator Biden had the humility to stoop down and work with President Obama as his running mate because he was interested in participating in lifting America from the cliffs it was in. This is an opportunity Governor Kwakwanso ought to have explored so that history will also record him as part of those who brought Nigeria out of the quagmire we found ourselves. But unfortunately, it looks like from the statement he's making, it looks like he's not interested in that role. And, you know, Mr. Peter Obi might very well be elected with or without Governor Kwakwanso. So what is most important now for Nigerians is believing in somebody that can move this nation forward. And I think they've seen that person in Governor Peter Obi.
Thank you very much. I have the pleasure to speak to Ikesi Ibe, who is a lawyer, entrepreneur, author, public speaker, and also the former Speaker, Imo State House of Assembly. Thank you once more for being my guest this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So people, thank you very much for being part of this program. It's been wonderful having you here. Join me next time as I do have another guest. Once more, I am Mazi Ezoke. This is New Media TV. If you haven't subscribed to this platform, please, by all means, do subscribe, like, and share. Once more, good evening today.